Hi everybody, it's Carpo here, and I'd like to read you some, let's just say writings, no, let's say I'd rather read to you some screenshots that I took of a variety of thoughts on fear and how to overcome fear and the root of fear. And sometimes when I'm doing a subject research, I'll go through and I'll pick out a bunch of, uh, quotes and paragraphs that I find informative so I can remember them, and I thought that these ones were put together well enough to be read as almost a paper in there as their own. So let's get into it. Fear. Fear puts body and mind in crisis mode and prepares us to run, fight, or freeze. Side note, we always hear about fight or flight, but freeze is the third option that we often forget about. Some people run, some people fight, and some people just literally freeze when they're caught in a crisis. Everything not essential for survival shuts down, so all energy can be used to deal with what we perceive as an immediate threat. Crisis mode is like being chased by a bear. We don't stop and think about where we're going. We don't pay attention to what we might be stepping on or in. We don't pause to assess the best course of action. We just get the hell out of there. We don't reach out or try to understand each other or other people when we're in crisis mode. We don't listen or learn. There is no time for creativity or new ways of seeing things. Our mind is pulled to simple, quick solutions, and what seemed to work before, even when that is the worst possible thing we could do. Fear-based thinking develops and deepens when we receive repeated messages that stimulate fear. Since fear gets and keeps our attention, it's a useful tool for the media and entertainment industries. Fear is also a highly effective political tactic. It is easy to manipulate voters when fear keeps us from taking time to understand issues, question assumptions, or look beyond talking points and spin. When we're in the grip of fear-based thinking, we tend to look for a strong leader to keep us safe without questioning whether he or she has our best interests at heart. Fear-based thinking leads us to process information in dead-end categories of either or, right or wrong, and good or evil. We reject all immigrants, all liberals, all Republicans, all people who are different or disagree with us. This creates dependable voting patterns, but leads to a breakdown of communication and cooperation. Fear-based thinking builds when we think about fear. Although the effects on our body and mind are similar, there is a big difference between fear that comes from present danger or natural fear, and fear that comes from thinking about danger, which is mental fear. Natural fear is a reaction to the perception of an immediate threat. Natural fear gets our attention and provides energy to run, fight, or freeze in order to maximize our chances of survival. It arises in a moment and dissipates in seconds when our attention shifts to dealing with the threat. Natural fear is a rare occurrence for many of us. There are no immediate threats to safety or well-being in our lives most of the time. Even in so-called dangerous neighborhoods, violent incidents last only minutes and don't occur every day. The primary source of fear is in our own minds. Mental fear is a response to thinking about threats, past or future, real or imagined. Mental fear focuses on the past and future and lasts long as we keep dwelling on it. In contrast, natural fear is a response to the moment and only lasts until we shift our focus to dealing with the problem at hand. It is important to understand how mental fear affects our brain. Scientists describe the brain as plastic, but I believe it's more accurate to say our brains are forming. Thoughts, perceptions, and experiences create pathways made up of connections between neurons. They're like roads in our brains. Going back and forth to the same way across an empty field eventually creates a path, and then a road. Repeating a certain line of thinking has the same effect on our brain. When a road is used a lot, it becomes well-worn or paved, making it easier to travel on. When we no longer travel on our particular path, it grows over and disappears in the weeds. At any given moment, we are either creating new pathways in our brain or reinforcing old ones. Pathways associated with fear are like highways. They're easy to get to and allow us to move quickly because they're related to survival. Messages of fear from the media and politicians pull our thoughts to similar pathways again and again while keeping us from forming new ones. So I think that's the end of what I copied, and I just want to make a side note on this. I believe it might have been from Psychology Today or one of the psychological journals. It's one of my favorite topics is the human mind. And I know that psychology and psychiatry is far from perfect, and analyzing the human mind is very difficult. You can't analyze consciousness when you're conscious, these kinds of things. But there are certain behaviors that we really can discover and figure out about one another. Things like fear, why we fear things, and how to overcome it. And I personally think that overcoming fear is one of the most valuable things we can have in life. And let me tell you, fear, do you get a gut feeling when you go to talk to certain people or have to make a call to a certain person or a subject comes up? If that's the case, you're allowing fear of a non-threat to dominate you. If you even get butterflies in your stomach, that is a fear response. That's anxiety. And we often fear, say, a presentation. We fear because we don't want to be ridiculed and be looked down on, say if we have to stand up in front of the class and present a paper. That same kind of fear is present when you get butterflies because you're talking to somebody who is draining your energy, or you know they're bringing up things that are hateful or hurtful, and the point being, don't expose yourself to that kind of crap, but sometimes we have no choice. And therefore, we tend to build a fear response about things that we misunderstand why we fear, and therefore we create a scapegoat for our fear. The old straw man, we want to find another scapegoat for the things that go wrong in our lives. So if we're broke, if we can't get a job, it must be immigrants. And perhaps in some areas it is, and I don't want to get into the politics of it, but if there's a terrorist incident, then all of a sudden it must be Muslims, even if you find out that it was, an American. There are many different assumptions that we make based on our preconceived notions about who to fear and what to fear. Xenophobia is the leading cause of fear, I think, in the world. The fear of other cultures, other people, other ideas, and this idea that we need to protect ourselves and our own at the cost and the peril of not embracing our own communities and the people around us, and realizing that everybody out there mostly has good intentions, just like you do. So fear-based thinking does really nothing for us, and I've over the years realized the things I had anxiety about that were based on real fears at times. But after a while, I realized that even if it is something worth fearing, if I'm not in imminent danger, you just got to let it go. And it's something I've practiced for a decade or so now, and so that's why I'm sharing it, because I think it would be beneficial to others. And the more we know about ourselves, the better off we are in the world, better armed we are. So thank you to all my patrons. If you want to support the channel, visit my Patreon channel, or come over to my Discord server and visit me for conversations about various topics. And you can email me, the info's in the description if you need to, and I will talk to you all later. Thanks for listening. Be well, and take care of each other. Peace.